I have a few woodworking tips for beginners. Actually, these tips work for everyone. Over the course of my woodworking history, I've seen a lot of tips. I've probably forgotten a ton more than I know. But these few tips today I use all the time, and I think they'll help you. Stick with me. All right, so for our first woodworking tip, I don't know about you, but I always have trouble with my CA glues crusting up on me. It doesn't seem like it really matters what I do. They all get crusty, they get clogged up, and it's always a struggle with them. Now, I can't take credit for this woodworking tip. A friend of mine made this little tool. It's basically, he turned a handle with a piano wire in it. I think this wire is 1.1 millimeters or 0.04 inches, which works good. If I can find a link in Amazon for the wire, I'll put it there for you. But basically, I use this tool. I keep it right here, and I use it for clearing the nozzle on the CA glue. You just stick it down in there, clear it, and your CA is usable again. It works great. Again, I can't take credit for it. A friend of mine did this for me, but I'm sure glad he did. Okay, second woodworking tip. I'm at the table saw, and I want to show you the push stick that I like to use. Now, you can go spend a lot of money on a fancy device to help you push wood through the saw. I won't call names, but it looks to me, I've never had one, but it looks to me like more setup time than just getting the job done. This is just a simple 2x6, and I've cut a notch on each side. So this is about 8 inches long. It doesn't really matter. This 8-10 inches is good. And I think it's a 1/2 inch deep and 1 inch wide. It doesn't matter. As you push through, your hand is away from the blade, which is good. And you cut through your cleat. So it's kind of disposable. Sometimes you have to make another one. What I usually do is I make 2 or 3 or 4 at a time, and they last for quite a while. So it gives you a lot of control. It works great, and it's cheap. Let me show you. I've never needed a thin rip jig. This works great, even for long pieces, and I'll show you the next one real thin. To keep consistency with your thin rips, other ways, you have to continue to move the fence, which then you introduce error to it. So I like to keep it at the same place. I always put my blade just above it. There's a lot of controversy as to where that should be. To me, it's just safer, so I don't really care. I have a saw stop, but I treat it like any other table saw, and I've never had a problem with it, never had an activation. I don't think I've ever had a kickback on a table saw. The main thing with a table saw is as you're pushing the wood through, you want to make sure you hold constant pressure down, which this does, and you want to hold the work against the fence. If this starts to move, that's when you create problems. As long as I'm not really watching the blade, I'm watching this. And I don't like feather boards because as I'm running it through, I'm constantly getting feedback into my hands as to what's going on. If I start getting some binding or whatever, I know there's a problem and I have to deal with it. Sometimes a feather board won't give you that feedback. So it's just really a matter of common sense. But I've been using the table saw for a long time and I've never had a problem with it. So let me just show you a thin rip cut. Now, if you want to get real thin, you might have to put an auxiliary board here so you don't cut into the face of your fence, but I'll get fairly close and I'll just show you that it works. Notice I cut straight through the cleat. Eventually, again, you'll have to replace it, go to the other side or whatever, but it works. You get to push both pieces through safely, and it's just that simple. Works great. Another little tip. Let me show you. Rarely do I cut anything really wide, super wide. I have a panel saw outside. So I've got this box that sits on the top of my table saw. It can be moved easily if it does get in the way. And I'm able to keep push blocks in here, different ones, some clamps, a brush, dust mask, pens, pencils, tape measures, gauges, stop blocks, all kinds of little useful items that you might need associated with the table saw. I know a lot of people build things underneath. For me, I don't have it because let me show you. I put a trash bin down there, so I throw my offcuts down there. I also have a toolbox on the left side of the saw that hold a bunch of other things like the saw stop stuff, the brake, the extra brakes, and things like that. So anyway, a simple 2x6 as woodworking tip number 2. All right, our last woodworking tip involves a reference book that I keep. Let me show you. This is a reference book that I put together that I keep on the shelf there and refer to it quite a bit. It has a number of different things in it, and it's going to be hard for you to see there. So let me change the camera around and I'll show you. So here is the book that I'm talking about. It's a book that I put together, and it just has things that I'm interested in. For instance, here is a chart with wood screws, the different sizes and all that, just good reference. Another one with bits and different speeds that you should use your bits with and stuff, just as a guide. Here's a guide on your drill press belts for your speed. The foot and hundredths, So it kind of gives you an idea where you're at. There's your fractions, things like that. Conversion tables. Here's one for what is equivalent micron and grit. Shellac mixing information. Here's my shellac mix information. Veneer thicknesses. Years ago, I was doing some tool making. So here's a chart of tempering colors for steel, a carving gouge chart. If you get a tool and you're not sure of the sweep, you can put it against here and you can check it. So it's just a number of things that I can reference really quickly. And for instance, this chart here, if you're using a digital caliper, which I hope that you do because it's a great tool and they're not expensive anymore. But if you measure, say, the thickness of something and it's 0.5, well, we know that 0.5 is a half inch. Right here is 0.5, half inch. If it was 0.375, it would be 3/8. And this whole chart gives you an indication of what the fraction is to the decimal that you read on your gauge. Now, if you have a number on here that doesn't correspond here, how do you figure that out? Well, if you take the number let's just say, we'll just use one of these here just for fun. 0.0625. Now it's in the chart, but say it wasn't. And you know you want to deal in 16ths. So you would multiply this by 16, right? So let's go to our calculator. 0.0625 times 16 equals 1. All right, so that 1 now becomes the numerator for your fraction. So you're at 1/16 here and here. And you can do 30 seconds, you can do 64ths, you can do whatever you want. So it really makes it simple to do the math. If you have a chart, it could be quick, but if you don't have the number in the chart, it's just that simple. So showing you just again, just how it works. 0.5, let's just say times 2. And we'll go with half. See, so it's 1/2. But say you put 0.5 times 4. Well, now you get 2, so that'd be 2/2. Oh, I'm sorry. That's wrong. 0.5 times 4 equals 2. So that would be 2, 2/4. I was looking at the wrong number. 2/4, which reduces down to 1/2. All right, so that's pretty simple. Now I can show you a real practical example. Let's take a framing square. On a framing square, say you want to find, you're doing a frame. So you've got your upright and your cross beam, and this is your brace. Comes across at 45 degrees, right? So how do you find that out? Well, this is a right triangle if you think of it that way, right? So this leg, we'll call this leg 24, this leg 24 inches. So what is this length from here to here? Well, it's the hypotenuse of a right triangle. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. You might also see when you're trying to square something up, people say the 3, 4, 5 method, 3, 4, 5, and then you're square. But the old guys, they used a carpenter's square. Well, if you look on the square over here, there's a set of numbers. Like here, you'll see 24, 24, 33.94, right? So that's saying if your brace is, your length is 24, 24, then this length of your brace is going to be 33.94, which is almost, just by common sense, it's almost 34 inches, right? But again, what is, if it's not 94, if it's 30 or whatever, it's the same thing. Again, you'll take the 0.94, let's turn it on, 0.94 times 16 equals 15. So it's going to be 15 sixteenths, right? So it'll be 33 and 15 sixteenths. All righty? While we're talking about doing calculations, I want to show you a couple apps on my phone for doing quick calculations. Here's a fraction calculator. Here's another feet inch calculator that has a bunch of other things on it. These are free and you should be able to find them in your app store with no problem. Here's the first one. If you'll see on the left there is just for the number and then the numerator and denominator, very easily done. The feet inch calculator has a bunch of other things that you can do as far as building and construction. They also help you as a furniture maker, and it takes a lot of time out of doing figuring. When you open it up, you come to this screen here. You'll see on the left that those are feet and the green is inches, and then to the right of that you'll see a bunch of different fractions, and that's how your input is done. At the top there is an advanced mode that allows you to switch from inches to millimeters and those kind of things, and I'll show you a close-up of that right now. If you look at the advanced tab at the top, and then you have a tutorial as well. So you just enter the numbers, and it's easy to put in the fractions because they're already existing for you. Down to the lower left is a tool button, and you press that and you get other options as far as triangle, board feet, baluster spacing, stair stringers, all kinds of different ways to measure things. You go further down, you have slope and grid ceilings, equal spacing, rake. You even have some electrical in there, punch lists. So for instance, a board feet you put in is 4/4, 8 feet long, 8 inches wide. Then it'll tell you how many board feet you have, in this case 5.33 board feet. You put in the amount per board foot, and in this case it's $64. So here's the miter function. You put in your miter and it gives you your angles. And for instance, this is 90 degrees. I'm saying it's 2 inches on either side. It's a 45 degree. cut, and it shows you what angle each board would have. If they were dissimilar, the angle would obviously be different, but here's a little closer view of it, and it gives you the angles that you need for your miters. Here's the triangle one, and as we had in that example, you have 24 inches on either side, and your hypotenuse, as it shows here, is 33 and 15/16. Like we did before with the framing square, this does it for you a lot quicker. You don't have to do the square root functions and all that stuff. Hope this helps. Well, I hope you found something in there that you can use. Before we go on to our police story, I have a couple of announcements. One is I will be at Fine Woodworking New England, May 9th and 10th. So if you plan to go and you plan to be there, if you see me, say something and we'll talk. We'll have a conversation or whatever. The other is I want to thank you guys. We went over 1,000 subscribers. It's all because of you guys getting in. And I was thinking maybe of, as a thank you, doing a live stream where maybe I could just answer some questions or just hang out for a little bit. Tell me what you think. I'll have to figure out, there's some intricacies in that. If you've never done it, how to go live. I mean, you can do it real simply, but then there's some other ways to be able to pop things up on the screen and all. I'm not sure I need all that. But what do you guys think? Are you interested in that at all? So just let me know if you are, and be kind of a cool way to hang out a little bit. All right? All right, so on to the police story. I don't know about other states, but in Florida, there's statutes regarding mental disability. So if somebody's having mental issues, problems, they can be called what's called Baker Acted. So you can be, against your will, taken in for a psychological evaluation. So that can be done by a police officer or a doctor. But if, say, you have a family member that's having trouble or whatever, and everybody's worried, in Florida, if 3 people go down to the courthouse, they can file an affidavit down there saying what the problem is and everything, and then the court will issue what they call a Baker Act B-52. So then that, once this process gets sent over to the sheriff's office. Now all that's leading up to the story, so you kind of have an understanding. So years ago, I was working in patrol, and I had a zone partner. He worked the next zone over from me. His name was John. He was an older guy, had been a deputy much longer than I had, but at roll call, he had gotten these Baker Act papers to serve. So I'm riding around, I'm in service, no call. So I get this message from John on the computer. Actually, our agency was one of the first to get actually mobile digital terminals in the car where we have communication by computer back then. And so he sent me a message. He said, hey, he goes, I'm over here across from this elementary school, and I need some assistance with this B-52. So I bring up his status, I get his address, and I go over there. And as I pull up, he's kind of waiting in the yard. So I said, John, I said, what's the problem? He says, well, I've got this old lady in there, and she doesn't want to listen. She doesn't want to go. And I don't want to manhandle her. So I thought maybe you could talk to her. I said, well, what makes you think she's going to listen to me any more than you? He goes, well, I don't know. Just, we could try it. You know, I said, all right. So I go in there and I walk in the living room. And if you can picture Granny Clampett sitting on a lazy boy chair, this is the image, right? This lady with this gown and these combat boots, and she's just sitting there, right? So I said, ma'am, this deputy's told you that you have to go with him. This is not a situation where you have any authority in this. It's mandatory. You have to do it. Well, she stands up all of a sudden. She goes, all right then, fine. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is going a little easier than I thought it was, you know? So she stands up and I said, ma'am, you're going to have to get some clothes on. We don't want to bring you down there in your nightgown, you know? So she goes, okay, fine. So she starts walking off to the bedroom. So I looked at John. I said, John, you better follow her. I mean, she probably is a little, you know, unstable, and keep an eye on her. And so he walks and he's behind her. Now, John had a little bit of a stutter, especially when he got nervous. He had not really bad, but he had a little of a stutter. So she goes to the bureau in the bedroom to get some clothes, right? She gets a couple things out and she puts them on the top. Then all of a sudden she turns around and she takes this robe off, boom, like this. And she has nothing on underneath, totally nothing, right? So she looks at John and she says, how about you dance naked with me? Come on. And he goes, I can't do that, ma'am. She goes, oh, come on and dance naked with me. And he goes, I can't do that. The sheriff wouldn't like that very much. And so she's coming closer and closer to John. So he's like backing up and she kind of chasing him around the room, trying to get him to dance naked with her. And she's still in these boots, right? It's just hilarious watching John trying to get away from this woman. Well, we finally convinced her to get some clothes on, but it was just kind of an unusual circumstance. It's just kind of a funny story. So you never know what can happen in police work. Believe me, that's why I love the job. It was something new every day. And you learn a lot about people, good and bad. All right, until the next time, you guys take care.